The first time I saw the flicker of jealousy in his eyes, it was subtle, almost imperceptible if I hadn't known what to look for. We were at a friend's party, and I was laughing a little too freely with someone else. At that moment, his smile tightened just a bit, and his gaze lingered longer than usual. I brushed it off, telling myself it was just a passing feeling, nothing serious. But that tiny seed of doubt had already been planted. I remember how everything felt so perfect before that night. We were like two halves of a whole, sharing dreams and secrets in the quiet hours of the evening. Our conversations flowed effortlessly, and the way he looked at me made me feel seen in a way I never had before. But looking back, maybe those moments were the calm before the storm. Jealousy, I learned, doesn't announce itself with a bang. It creeps in slowly, wrapping around your love like ivy climbing a wall, beautiful at first, but eventually choking the life out of everything underneath. He started asking questions about my friends, about where I was going, who I was texting. It wasn't just casual curiosity. It was like he was trying to map out every corner of my life to make sure there was nothing, or no one, he felt threatened by. The first confrontation caught me off guard. He accused me of flirting with someone at a work event, though I hadn't even realized I'd been acting differently. His voice was low but sharp, laced with hurt and suspicion. I tried to explain, to reassure him, but his eyes wouldn't let me in. It was like suddenly there was a wall between us, a wall built from his jealousy. I wanted to believe it was just a rough patch, something we could work through together. But every time I tried to reach out, to show him love and trust, it felt like I was pushing against a tide of doubt. And the more I gave, the more he seemed to question the sincerity of my feelings. It was exhausting, trying to prove myself constantly. It wasn't only about people, either. Jealousy started to twist his perception of time and attention. If I spent more than a few minutes on my phone, he'd wonder who I was talking to. If I was late coming home, his mind raced through worst-case scenarios. The freedom that had once defined our relationship began to feel like a cage slowly closing in. One night after a long day, I found a message on his phone that wasn't meant for me. It was from a mutual friend, and the tone was flirty, teasing even. My heart sank. Was he looking for validation elsewhere because of his own insecurities? When I confronted him, he didn't deny it, but twisted the story, blaming me for making him feel less than enough. The jealousy was poisoning both of us. The arguments became more frequent, each one fueled by suspicion and misunderstandings. We'd yell about things that shouldn't have mattered, texts, looks, random encounters. But beneath it all was a fear neither of us wanted to admit. Fear of losing each other to the shadows of jealousy. I tried to hold on to the love we once had, but it felt like trying to catch smoke with my bare hands. Every time I thought things might get better, another accusation or icy silence would pull us back into the cycle. There were moments of tenderness, yes, but they were fragile and fleeting, like glass shards glittering in the sun before shattering. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed one night, my heart breaking as he stared at me with a mix of love and distrust. He whispered that he needed to know I was mine and only mine, but the way he said it felt like a demand, not a plea. I wanted to tell him that love isn't ownership, but the words caught in my throat. The jealousy started to change me too. I found myself second-guessing every interaction, censoring my laughter, avoiding certain friends just to keep the peace. It was like I was shrinking, trying to fit into a role that wasn't truly me, all to protect a love that was slipping through our fingers. One afternoon, I caught a glimpse of him watching me from across the room with a look I'd never seen before, something dark and desperate. It unsettled me deeply. I wondered how love could transform into a battle of control and suspicion. What had happened to the man who once held me gently and told me I was his world? I tried talking to him about how the jealousy was hurting us both, but it always spiraled into blame and defensiveness. He'd say, I didn't understand how hard it was to trust when you've been hurt before. And I'd remind him that love should be a safe place, not an endless test of loyalty. There was a night when he followed me to a friend's gathering unannounced, his eyes scanning the room like a storm was brewing inside him. When I saw him, my stomach twisted. I felt embarrassed and trapped, but also deeply sad that our love had taken us here, to suspicion and surveillance instead of laughter and freedom. The tension between us grew unbearable. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, we'd sit side by side without speaking, the weight of unspoken words hanging thick in the air. I wanted to reach out, to bridge the gap, but the fear of rejection and anger stopped me every time. I caught myself wondering if this was what love was supposed to feel like, an endless battle between trust and doubt, hope and fear. And yet, despite everything, I couldn't let go. My heart was tethered to his, tangled in a messy web of affection and pain. One evening, after a particularly harsh argument, he broke down and admitted his jealousy stemmed from past betrayals he'd never fully healed from. It was a raw, vulnerable moment that shook me. I wanted to comfort him, to heal together, but the damage felt too deep, too entrenched. The lines between love and obsession blurred. I saw him checking my phone, questioning my whereabouts, and I hated how it made me feel, like a prisoner in a gilded cage. Yet, when I tried to pull away, his pleas and apologies made me stay, caught in a cycle I couldn't escape. Friends started noticing the change in me. They asked if I was okay, if I was happy. I lied, saying everything was fine, afraid to admit that jealousy had poisoned the purest thing in my life, our love. There was a day when I found myself standing alone in the rain outside his apartment, soaked and trembling after yet another fight. My heart ached with confusion and exhaustion. How did we end up here? How had love become a battlefield where neither of us could win? The more I tried to reassure him, the more his jealousy intensified. It felt like no matter what I did, it was never enough. I was caught in a spiral of proving my love endlessly, losing pieces of myself along the way. He once told me that jealousy was a sign of love, that it showed how much he cared. But I couldn't accept that. Love, to me, was trust and freedom, not suspicion and chains. I started keeping secrets, not big lies, but little things to avoid unnecessary fights. I stopped telling him about casual conversations or social invitations because I knew they'd spark jealousy. It felt like I was living a double life, and it tore me apart inside. One night, after a long silence, he finally opened up about his fears, the fear of losing me, of not being enough, of being abandoned. His voice cracked with pain, and for a moment, I saw the scared boy behind the man. It made me ache to want to fix everything, but I also knew that love can't mend what's broken from the inside. We tried couples therapy, hoping to untangle the knots of jealousy and insecurity. The sessions were hard, filled with tears and uncomfortable truths. Sometimes we made progress, other times we felt like we were digging deeper into a pit with no bottom. Despite all the strain, there were moments when he surprised me, small acts of kindness, genuine apologies, the way he'd hold me close and whisper promises of change. Those moments kept me hoping that our love could survive, that jealousy could be defeated. But jealousy is a relentless beast. It doesn't retreat easily. It waits for cracks to widen and then floods in, drowning all reason and warmth. It turned his love into something suffocating and my affection into guarded caution. I found myself dreaming of a life where love was simple again, where we could laugh without suspicion, trust without doubt, and live without fear. But reality kept pulling me back into the complicated mess we'd become. One afternoon, I discovered a journal he kept, a window into his turbulent thoughts filled with jealousy and fear. Reading his words was like stepping into a storm. I understood him better, but it also made me realize how much pain jealousy had caused him and how deeply it had infected our relationship. I confronted him gently about the journal. He admitted he wrote to make sense of his feelings, to battle the jealousy monster inside him. It was a fragile admission that revealed the complexity of what we were fighting, a love caught in the crossfire of past wounds and present fears. Despite our efforts, the jealousy kept poisoning our days. I remember the sinking feeling in my stomach when I saw him glance at my phone with suspicion, or when a simple text message turned into a storm of accusations. It was like walking on a tightrope with no safety net. I began questioning myself. Was I too carefree, too trusting, or was his jealousy simply unfair, a shadow cast over something beautiful? The lines blurred until I wasn't sure what was real anymore. The night he accused me of hiding something, a fight erupted that left us both breathless and broken. Words were thrown like knives, and when the storm passed, silence settled heavily between us. It was a silence filled with regret and fear, fear that love might not be enough. I found myself longing for the early days when love was a spark, not a wildfire that threatened to consume us. But the jealousy had changed the script, and we were actors trapped in a drama neither of us wanted to star in. He once said that jealousy was proof that he loved me fiercely, but I couldn't reconcile that with the hurt it caused. Love that wounds isn't love, it's something else entirely, something I was struggling to understand. I started confiding in close friends, seeking their perspective and support. They listened as I poured out my fears and doubts, reminding me that love should uplift, not imprison. Their words gave me strength, but the battle at home continued unabated. There were nights when I lay awake, heart pounding, wondering if we could survive this. Could we find our way back to trust? Or was jealousy an uninvited guest that had set up permanent residence in our hearts? He tried to change, I could see that, but jealousy is a hard habit to break. It clings to the soul like a shadow, refusing to fade even in the brightest light of love. One day I decided to take a step back, not out of anger, but out of desperation to save what was left of myself. I needed space to breathe, to heal, and to find clarity amidst the chaos his jealousy had created. Our conversations during that time were tentative, filled with honesty and vulnerability. We talked about our fears, our hopes, and the damage jealousy had wrought. It was painful but necessary, a raw process of peeling back layers to find the core of our love. I realized that jealousy isn't just about mistrust. It's about fear of loss, insecurity, and sometimes a cry for reassurance that gets lost in translation. Understanding this helped me approach him with more compassion, even when my own heart was breaking. We started small, rebuilding trust brick by brick. It wasn't easy. Every step forward sometimes came with 2 steps back. But those small victories, like a shared laugh without suspicion or a quiet moment without tension, felt like precious gifts. Jealousy remains a shadow in our story, a ghost that sometimes whispers doubts. But we're learning to face it together, to recognize it for what it is, and not let it define our love. There are moments when I still catch that flicker in his eyes, the old fear lurking beneath the surface. But now, instead of retreating, we talk through it, holding each other accountable and reminding ourselves why we chose love in the first place. I'm not sure where our journey will take us, but I know this. Love, even when tainted by jealousy, can still hold the power to heal if both hearts are willing to fight for it.